Welcome to Wisconsin in Focus. I'm Bruce Walker, Great Lakes Regional Editor for the Center Square, and I'm with Benjamin Yount, the Center Square's Wisconsin correspondent. Welcome, Ben.
It is always good to spend my Thursdays here with you talking into the microphone.
Well, especially about one of your very, very favorite topics, sports.
Sports talk.
Sports talk.
Do we get to just start yelling at each other like we're on ESPN? No! Aaron Rodgers will be an MVP and the Jets will win the World
Oh, please no. Although I did enjoy Aaron Rodgers when he was on Jeopardy. I thought that was kind of groovy.
Speaking of the Packers, this week we got the news that the NFL draft is going to come to Green Bay. And this is all manners of jokes and memes on its own. But the NFL, in its quest to not only become America's favorite sport and favorite television show, now wants to become your favorite spring vacation destination. And they are moving the draft around to various cities. This year it was in Kansas City. For years, people who are not football fans, for years, the draft was held in New York City, and it was in a hotel ballroom, and then they finally moved it to like the Rockefeller Center. And so what they've realized is you can take this thing around the country, and thousands of people will either buy tickets or show up, buy beer and shirts and all manners of things, and you can turn this essentially into a springtime away game for the NFL. So that being said, they picked Green Bay, title town, to host the draft in April of 2025. There were wonderful memes about how it's going to be 32 degrees in April in Green Bay, which it can happen. I think they had 2 feet of snow this April, and how the single restaurant in Green Bay is going to be very, very busy that day. And they're not kidding. Green Bay is a town of about 160,000 people, and there are not a lot of hotels. There aren't a lot of places to go because outside of the 8-9 weekends a year when everyone comes to Green Bay to see the Packers, it is a relatively sleepy little town. So after we got done with those stories and Packer Nation was all thrilled to death, we get the request from a pair of Green Bay lawmakers, David Steffen and Rob Cowles, to get $2 million into the state budget to help support the draft. And the way they put it is, look, this is going to be a 90-something million dollar economic impact. Hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of people are going to come to Green Bay for the draft, and they're going to stay in hotel rooms, and they're going to eat meals, and they're going to buy gas, and they're going to buy a lot of beer. And so $2 million, well, that's a drop in the bucket. And it's interesting that both of these are Republican lawmakers, and this is the second, as we have talked about several times here on Wisconsin in Focus, this is the second request pending for public money for a sports thing.
And the other one is
the Milwaukee Brewers and their wonderful stadium of American Family Field. And that's where we pick up the update that's actually happening sort of as we speak. Major League Baseball's commissioner, Rob Manfred, who is beloved in Houston, is going to be in Milwaukee to kind of sort of subtly, not so subtly, threaten that if Milwaukee doesn't figure out a way to fix American Family Field, that if there's no public money to help with the repairs and maintenance, then maybe the Brewers could find themselves a brand new city. That news conference is coming at the exact same time that Milwaukee County commissioners are expected to overwhelmingly approve a resolution that says, no, we're not spending any county money on this stadium. Tough luck, pound rocks. If you want to leave, I hear Montreal's looking for a team. So it is an interesting time to be asking for taxpayer money to support sports stuff in the state.
Well, here in Michigan, it's pretty much the same story. We have the Detroit Grand Prix that it cost $7 million to move it off of Belle Isle back to the streets of downtown Detroit. And plus, Detroit has the NFL draft next year.
Did they kick in any money?
Not yet, to the best of my knowledge. But, the ask is coming.
Now, I looked, as I was writing the story, I looked for that and tried to see if Michigan had promised any. But, again, and this is par for the course. Every major league franchise, every NFL franchise, every sports franchise looks to get as much money as they possibly can from taxpayers to offset the cost, because these are These are huge expenses. The fix list at American Family Field is at least $300 million, if not closer to 500. And so, these owners, these teams, they have figured out that because people love the teams and buy the shirts and go to the games, and I'm a season ticket holder for Milwaukee Brewer baseball. I've got 3 Yount shirts because Robin Yount is our Hall of Famer. I've got 3 Yount jerseys hanging in my closet. I paid full price for every single one of them. I'm one of the suckers that the Brewers gets. But yeah, the expectation is that they can turn to governments, turn to taxpayers, whether that's the city or the state or somebody, and say, help us out, please. And it always comes with the idea of, well, I mean, I hear Nashville wants a team. Orlando's looking for a team. I mean, So, and this is the benefit that Cowles and Steffen get when we put that out on Twitter. There are so many people who are like, oh, well, $2 million. I mean, that's compared to $300 million for the Brewers, not $2 million. That's a bargain.
Well, just color me skeptical when it comes to the whole give us money or we will relocate, or give us money because it's a pittance compared to what you're going to make in return. Always what economists call multipliers. Always a little bit skeptical about that because it seems that they're putting all 10 fingers on the scale when they make these estimates.
People in Nashville, Tennessee aren't just setting back money saying, well, I mean, if we had a ball game, if we had a baseball team, then I'd spend this $100. But, now since we don't, I'm just going to stick it under my mattress. No, they find other things to spend their money on. And I love me the Brewers, but if the Brewers weren't there, I promise you I could spend the $100 per ball game that I spend on beer alone somewhere else.
Right. And I talked to an economist for a story on the Detroit Grand Prix that I wrote last week. And he's basically saying that it might be a boon for the city of Detroit, but it's not going to be a boon for the rest of the state because people will go to Detroit and spend their money there that otherwise they would have spent someplace else in Michigan. So it's just shuffling dollars around.
That's the holdup for a lot of outstate Republican lawmakers. Howard Markline is the Senate co-chair of the Joint Finance Committee, the people who actually write the budget. And he said time and time and time again, he's like, look, I got a lot of farmers in my community, and they're not running out in July to go watch the Brewers. I mean, where's the benefit for them to spending $300 million in state money to make sure the Brewers don't have to pay for their own upgrades? And that is a hurdle that they're going to have to get over. The trick box that Republicans have placed the city of Milwaukee in is, all right, well, we're having this conversation about shared revenue. You're going to get millions and millions and millions of dollars. So if you want to keep the Brewers, you got to pay something. You don't have to pay for the whole thing, but you got to pay something. And so, yeah, the vote from Milwaukee County Commissioners today, it's going to be interesting because I expect if push does come to shove, and if they get shared revenue, to take this conversation meta, I expect that the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors will eventually just shut up, bite the bullet, and vote for this because no one wants to be the entity that gets hung for letting the Brewers move to Orlando or Nashville or Salt Lake City.
Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. I'm Bruce Walker, Great Lakes Regional Editor for The Center Square. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.